Hey, I'm Rob from JestaThaRogue.com and I'm going to show you how to play the Lord of the Rings adventure book game, spoiler free. This is a game for 1 to 4 players, plays in about 20 minutes per chapter, is designed by Jay Little, Ryan Miller and Marcus Ross, and is published by Ravensburger. You play as a fellowship following the famous story through 8 chapters. In each chapter you need to complete the various challenges in order to progress. But if you take too long or you trigger the chapter's fail condition, you need to restart that chapter, maintaining the amount of corruption you have. Too much corruption and it's game over. So before I go through all the throw do's and throw don'ts of this game, it would be samwise of you to hit the subscribe button for more board game videos like this one. As I mentioned, this video is going to be spoiler free and I'm only going to show you what you need to play chapter 1. The rules of gameplay for each chapter are the same. All you need to do is check the chapter specific rules of the chapter you're playing. For setup, open the book to chapter 1. Put the 5 challenge tokens to the right of the book. There are 2 decks of cards with the same back. Special cards have this book icon at the bottom. Separate them out, shuffle them and place them to the right of the storybook. Shuffle the rest of the cards to create the story deck. Put them face down above the book. If playing solo, lay out 6 cards from the story deck face up. This will be the dummy hand to trade with, but more on that later. Put the corruption track above the book with the ring corruption marker on the starting space. Shuffle and place the 5 Eye of Sauron cards next to the corruption track. Shuffle the dice-backed plot deck and place it to the left of the book. Give each player a reference card. Now follow the setup instructions for the chapter you are playing. Chapter 1 has 5 steps, and step 1 is the same for all chapters. This is to get the plot card for the chapter you are playing and put it near the board. And deal 4 cards from the story deck to each player. The next step is to put the Hobbit minis on their spaces as indicated. Frodo is blue, Samwise green, Merry yellow and Pippin red. Aragorn goes on their space, which is in the challenges section on the right of the book. Gandalf is represented by a token and goes grey side up on their space. Put the 2 Black Rider tokens on their spaces. And the player that last took a trip goes first. Now you read the rules for your current chapter. For chapter 1 there's only a couple. Black Riders follow the black smoke path clockwise when moving and cannot move onto each other. Other characters can move either way down the white paths. Hobbits can't move through a space with a Black Rider, but Aragorn can. And if a Black Rider moves through or lands on a space with a Hobbit, send that Hobbit to the hiding spot in the middle. On a player's turn they follow the 5 steps on the reference card in order. The first is to move. 1 character 0 to 2 spaces or 2 characters 1 space each. Now characters refers to both your minis and your tokens, and characters can share a space unless the chapter says you can't. Now some chapters have the ability to flip certain tokens. In this case you can move them 1 space, flip them and then move them their 2nd space. Next comes storytelling. In this phase the active player can complete any of the 5 actions in any order. The first is to trade 1 card in hand with any other player. This is the only action limited to once per turn. If you're playing solo, remember that you have that hand of 6 face up cards to trade with. The second is to discard a card to the story deck pile from hand to move 1 character 1 space per discarded card. Be careful discarding 1 ring cards to move, but more on these shortly. The third action is to complete a challenge. Simply meet the requirements and discard the required cards. For example, Keep It Secret, Keep It Safe requires that Frodo, Gandalf and Samwise are in particular locations on the board and you discard an insight card from your hand to the story discard pile. If the challenge shows a question mark, this means any story card, and an equals with 2 question marks is any 2 of the same card. When complete, put a challenge completed token on the challenge. Gain the reward. For this challenge, every player draws a card from the story deck. Also follow any further instructions. This challenge asks that you remove Gandalf from the board. Challenges can be completed in any order unless stated. For example, we do not stop till nightfall asks that the other challenges are completed first. Some challenges reward special cards. If that's the case, just draw one from the top of the special card deck. The fourth action is to play a special card. Special cards can be discarded to the story deck discard pile to move a character 1 space just like any other story card. They also count as a wild card when discarding cards to complete challenges. The final action is to use the chapter's 1 ring ability. In chapter 1 you can discard a 1 ring from your hand to move a Black Rider 1 space. 1 ring cards also count as a wild card when completing challenges, and they can also be discarded to move a character as normal, but you might not want to. Whenever a 1 ring is played or discarded, you advance the corruption track 1 space. This includes discarding a 1 ring to move a character. If the corruption marker goes onto an Eye of Sauron card, draw and resolve the next card in the deck. Now I won't spoil them here, but just trust me when I say none of them are good. If the corruption marker ever goes backwards then forwards over an Eye of Sauron space that you've already resolved and drawn a card for, you don't draw another card for that space. After playing all the actions you want to, you move on to the next bit, which is to draw 2 cards from the story deck. If the deck ever runs out, just shuffle the discard pile into a new deck. This means that some played special cards will get shuffled into that new deck. Next, reveal the top card of the plot deck and complete the relevant action on the plot card. In Chapter 1, these either send hobbits to the hiding spot by moving one there directly, or they move the Black Riders clockwise around the black smoke path. Remember to send a hobbit to the hiding spot if they ever move onto one. After resolving that, discard down to 6 cards. And don't go trying discarding all your One Ring cards here, they still move the corruption track when discarded, even in this phase. And play continues clockwise. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can fail the chapter. In Chapter 1, you fail if there is ever more than one hobbit at the hiding spot at a time, or if you can't draw from the plot deck because it's empty. If this happens, you restart the chapter, but you keep the corruption marker where it is on the track. Return any special cards you earned this attempt back to the special cards deck. All players discard their hands and you restart the chapter. If you complete all the challenges, you win the chapter immediately. Clear the book, turn the page and make sure you keep the corruption marker in the same space. Players discard the hands and you set up Chapter 2. If the corruption marker ever gets to 15, you lose the game completely and have to go back to Chapter 1 and start again. And that's how you play the Lord of the Rings adventure book game. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, share and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when a new video goes live. You can follow me on Insta, Twitch and YouTube at Jesta ThaRogue and find the blog at JestaThaRogue.com. I've been Rob aka Jesta ThaRogue. I'll see you soon.